Hey Shaz, my name's James Masella from Movie Death Blows. Thanks for taking the time to sit down with me today.
I mean, man. Appreciate it.
So you're the star, the director, one of the writers, and the martial artist. Where does the idea for this film come from?
It was a short film years ago that was sort of the genesis of it. It was about a boxer. I was just tinkering around, experimenting, shooting, different things, and sort of evolved over the years. Just this desperate need to tell a feature length story, and to kind of fuse two cultures that I feel like I myself have been straddling all my life, and kind of play it in this MMA tale for the modern times. As a fan of mixed martial arts, I was like, I hadn't seen anything like it, so I wanted to bring it in, sort of fresh, modernized mixed martial arts tale, essentially.
Yeah, when it comes to mixed martial arts movies, there's not really a lot of, it's usually Never Back Down, Warrior, and then like there's a big difference between those and the rest of them. So like,
Exactly.
you know what
Exactly.
I'm talking about when you're looking at it. But what is your like? What's your main discipline? Are you a martial artist in general? Like, what's your discipline when it comes to that?
I couldn't have called myself a martial artist before this. When I was writing it, I thought I'd go in for like a couple months of training, I'd be all right. But MMA has evolved so much, so I ended up, but spending 4 years um, learning jiu-jitsu, Muay Thai, kickboxing, all the disciplines, wrestling, even through Taekwondo, Kung Fu. Because if you wanted to shoot fight scenes that are reflective of modern MMA, you got to actually do those moves as they are being done these days in mixed martial arts, and then obviously throw that cinematic touch. So yeah, I got brutalized, man. Got my butt kicked, but it was
Yeah.
worth it.
Speaking of the fight scenes, I think the one in the desert is the most interesting one for me. Like, how do you, as the director and the star, choreograph that as you're like in the scene fighting this guy at the same time?
Preparation, because there's no way other than that we're going to get it done. Especially, we're not a big production here, so it was a lot of prep with the stunt coordinator Jason Pukic and Ryan Spatafor, who played the other fighter. He was just completely game to just be in rehearsals and really just fine tune all those little sequences and exchanges. And yeah, it was a lot of prep, and then there were some shots that were taken, but that was by accident. But we wanted to have that gritty, realistic MMA feel, and we're hoping we stumbled upon something fresh.
I've been an MMA fan for a while, probably since like 2008. I think my first UFC event was like UFC 100, but I was always watching Pride and stuff in
Oh yeah,
between there. I noticed you have the guy you square off with the end, the Deacon. He's got like that Anderson Silva look with the Fedor name. What were you going for? Was that what you were going for with that character?
that I haven't thought of it that way, but I'm sure cautiously maybe that's where it came from. He just needed to have that when Silva was fighting all Rich Franklin and all those guys, he was an unstoppable. Like he was a beast. Like you needed somebody like that. So I'm sure that was part of it, and this sort of insurmountable opponent. I mean, I remember when Weidman knocked out Silva, like it was like, oh, he couldn't believe it, right? And so like I was trying to play with all those years of MMA like moments, and we were trying to put those into fights too, kind of piecemeal them together. And we were just fans, so we wanted to create something that I think maybe the fans will like.
I think you have such an interesting background. You're from California, then you moved back to Pakistan, then up in Pennsylvania. What was that journey like for you coming for those like three different places that are entirely not the same at all?
No, absolutely not. I left Cali when I was 4 to Pakistan. So formative years were all in Pakistan, and then moving to outside of Philly, it's the Philly sort of grit, that grew up around that. I went to Penn State. All my boys, coming into town for the movie, they're all my Philly boys, Pittsburgh boys. It's a completely different feel. Then I go to California. Obviously, it's a completely different environment. And I think all of it played into just this. I've always been connected to different types of people. I think that's why I became an artist and actor because I love being around different cultures and different walks of life. But Philly is close to heart. I love that's home. And same with Pakistan actually. That's where my family's
Like I didn't want to tell you beforehand, but right now I'm sitting in Bucks County, Pennsylvania, in Warrington
from.
at the
Yeah,
moment.
here. All right, that's why I got the Philly vibe. All right, okay.
I went to Temple though. I'm not a Penn State guy. I'm a Temple Owl guy. So, it is what nobody's perfect.
No, no, Temple. I had some good times in Temple back in the day because Drexel and Temple. Those are the two in the city that my boys used to come hang out in because their friends were all from there. So that was kind of the
I wasn't sure the suburb vibe, the part you're in. I'm like, I'm a Council Rock kid. I was like, oh, I'm gonna ask him, see if he tells me ahead of time.
Conestoga, man, outside of King of Prussia.
All right,
Or,
Montgomery County.
we and then my brother lived in downtown Philly, so I got to experience that a little bit through him. But I was there in September. It was awesome. My buddy
Sure.
owned a bar in Fishtown, so I was over there hanging out, showing some scenes. It was really cool.
Yeah, definitely. As I'm watching the martial arts, I can't help but notice Carlos Esparza pops up, and you've got the always wonderful Herb Dean. How did you get those two in the movie?
You know, I'm so grateful that they're in it. And Herb actually I met at the airport. We were hanging out. I'm like, man, do you want to be in this thing I'm doing? It's like during COVID. And he was like totally game. So it was awesome like that. Carla, I was training at Team Oyama, which is her gym, and Coach Oyama was there, and I wanted to shoot some scenes there. So we shot one, and she was there, and I asked her if she would want to be part of it. She was totally game too. They're very supportive. So, and they were kind of a litmus test too of the MMA and the reality, the believability. Because I nothing would annoy me more if I saw somebody making a movie about mixed martial arts nowadays, and just like you could tell they're like it's not real. So they became sort of the litmus test for me to make sure it's believable.
Yeah, especially like everybody loves Rocky, but everybody knows that's not really how boxing works in a movie. It's not just, banging every time. And like you go to the ground in this, there's some knee bars, there's some everything like that. I'm watching what's going on. But it looked very realistic to me, especially the desert scene. I love that scene. That's just me.
Oh, thanks. I really appreciate that. That one was close to our heart too because we didn't have a movie until we did that film or till we did that scene because the movie's called Martial Artists. The MMA aspect had to be real. So that was like one of those ones where an interesting story actually. That last shot, the knockout blow, was we were losing the sun, and it became this like miracle shot because we weren't getting the light, we weren't getting the frame, and he kept telling me, Ryan's like, hit me. Throughout the fight, I'm like, this is a movie, Ryan. We're not here to bang out. Listen, I can't lose you in the middle of the fight. So, but that last shot, I cracked him because I felt the camera coming at the perfect angle with the sun. I'm like, I gotta make a little contact. No one was more pumped than him about that.
Gregory Sporletter as Frank Fisher. I mean, I've watched him for years from, The Rock to Friends to Black Hawk Down and everything like that. He's always so good in everything. What was it like getting to work with him in that, kind of Dana White role?
Awesome, man. Yeah, he was a. We were trying to play this sort of eccentric MMA promoter, so like a little bit different than Dana White. We didn't want to like play around that lane, and I think he nailed it. He just brought a sort of quirkiness and the humor, and just you just never know where you stand with that guy, which was kind of what I was going for, and hopefully the audience goes for too. So
He's got the perfect chin. It's just right out there and everything.
it's true. It's great. It's
Where did
great.
you end up shooting the scenes when you're in the mountains and everything like that? Like, where did that take place?
Northern Pakistan.
Okay, so
So
you actually did go back to Pakistan to shoot those and everything like that.
no one's actually shot up there, and you had to take these like special made jeeps, 45 minutes up this track to get to shoot. It was wild. And we found that location last minute. Actually, the original location we got to the country. They're like, you can't shoot here because there was like some political on that. So we had to drive around, and I was about to cancel it because in the movie you gotta feel like you're moving into this sort of heavenly escape with this character's transformation. And we found it driving around the country over the next 3 days, and it was perfect. So
None of the fights actually take place in like an actual ring. It's always out in like the elements and everything like that. Were you ever going to put it in like the octagon? Then you're like, no, it's not going to look as cool. I want like a different feel to it. Or you just went with these
absolutely,
settings?
it's necessity, and it breeds creativity, I guess, because it was COVID. We weren't getting rings, so we were just like, what do we do? And this idea came of this sort of smoker organization that like puts these fights in these exotic places and throws up these cameras and like films them live. And then we just started like rollerballing and like, oh, no time limit, no rules, kind of a feel, old school UFC. Let's just play into this. And then it was like, why would we change this? And then the last fight, we were like, we gotta just find that location that's like perfect for this character's transformation and what he's gonna be going through. And those temples, my producer found them, and we are like, we gotta go shoot Belize. But that was a whole other headache, but served the story perfectly.
I love when Frank Fisher's out there. It's like there's no time limit, there's no rules. Like, this feels like Hoist Gracie going to Pride to fight like Sakuraba. Like there's no time limit. It's just going to be like 48 minutes. These guys just beating the absolute crap out of each other.
You know all the history, man. Exactly. That's exactly. So Jason and I, we were just so adamant about going old school because he was a former MMA fighter. He's a black belt in jiu-jitsu, and he's just a fan of those old days. And it was so raw, right? Because it wasn't a sport yet. It was raw. And that no time limit, no rules also bred like the weirdest exchanges. You could feel it. Now everything's like sort of ordered. It's just more polished.
It's much more regimented, and people have like game plans now and like how they're going to fight. Before it was just like we're just going to go out there and wing it and see what goes on.
And there was something really exciting about that. So I try to bring that into the fights.
Like
So
I have friends who are like, oh, I watch UFC and I bet on it. And I was like, look, I know more. I'm not going to say I know more about it than you do, but I probably do. So I'm not gonna not you in general, my friends and everything like that. I was like, look,
it was,
I've studied all the Pride tapes, Strike Force, Bellator, everything that's been around that I could have got my hands on back in the day. I was watching just because I was so fascinated by the sport.
me too, man. I didn't get down to that rabbit hole, but I would love to actually because those old prides were even more. I think it was just using the location, the setting, and being in Japan. I don't know. It felt like those fights were even more raw than UFC. Although some of the UFC classics were next level. Let's be honest.
There's a on Vice TV they have like Dark Side of the Cage. It's kind of like Dark Side of the Ring, and they do like the rise of Pride and the fall of Pride, and it tells you like everything with like Don Fry and Gary Goodridge and everything that went into it and stuff like that.
Check that out.
It,
Sounds
it it's fascinating stuff. Like I used to, the old Pride stuff used to be on Spike. That's the only reason I used to watch it all the time to see Crow Cop and stuff like that.
Well, Spike was the reason with the Bonner and Forrest Griffin, right? That was Spike, right?
The Ultimate Fighter that basically saved that entire channel and everything like
I,
that.
I saw that live, man. That was one of the most amazing like sporting things I've ever seen. Just them going at it, duking it out. Um,
Who's your favorite MMA fighter? Who would you model yourself after?
ooh, that's a great question.
It's the $10 million question.
No, it was like when GSP was coming up, he really was to me like there's something about him that was really really awesome to watch. Just the way he approached the sport. But Silva, I think there was really not many people, with the exception of McGregor when he was rising up, like in that crazy streak that he had, that like took over in terms of like how like beautiful it was to watch it in the ring, like what they were doing. Like in McGregor, people forget how good he was. Like when he came in, he like was like straight up an artist in there. So the Ibby's main character is sort of based on like probably still the McGregorish GSP type feel, like the combination of those traits. But as he evolves, like even when in the last fight, it becomes like he becomes his own fighter in a way. So we wanted to kind of throw like random Wing Chun stuff in there that people will be like, "What's this?" And just to like give him his own identity because he's shifted, he's transformed. He's not trying to emulate people as much. He's found his own way.
Yeah, with that Deacon character, like I said, it captured the aura that Anderson had exactly because he never talked, but he just showed up, and you're like, should I be afraid of this guy? Because he doesn't really say anything. But then when you watch him in the ring, you're like, I don't even know how I hit this person because what he did to Forrest Griffin was one of the most embarrassing things I've ever seen.
Backwards knockout, right? That was yeah, exactly.
That was in Philly. I was there for it. It was like UFC 102,
I
I
lied.
think, or something. Yeah.
Wow, that must have been
It was that, and then the main event was BJ Penn, Kenny Florian. That was the main event for that back in the day.
Kenny Florian, man. Yeah, I
That's
like
how old that this that's how long this goes back. I had hair when that happened.
Kenny Florian was great though. I love watching him fight back in the day because he had that jiu-jitsu background, right?
Yeah, Kenny Ken Flo with the elbows, he would cut you with them and
The
everything
elbows,
like that.
dude. It's good to talk to somebody.
We 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 could talk about this forever.
Yeah, yeah, for sure, man. Yeah, and this is
So,
where that's the sauce for me for making the movie when we were in the trenches. It's like, all right, let's try to give the people something fresh and
I think that's all I've got for you today, Shaz. It's been an absolute pleasure to get to watch the martial artist and then talk to you about it. I hope I get to see more stuff from you in the future. We can talk again because I know if we talked about MMA, this conversation would never end.
exactly. No, man. Anytime, man. Love to. Yeah, it's great talking to you too, fellow Philly man. Man. So
Always appreciate it, man.
open door. Cheers, man.